It's just a dream. The whole universe is just a dream in the mind of God. One mind waking up experienced that awakening is experienced through apparently 8 billion people. It's not actually that way. It's not 8 billion people experiencing the awakening. It is a small amount of people experiencing the awakening now. Others, the rest of the 8 billion are implicit in the awakening, but they're not experiencing it. To experience it, you have to witness it. You have to see it in action. You have to see the nature of the relationships you're in changing. You have to see the phenomena that accompanies metaphysical work. You have to see the mystical side of life presented to you in a way where you can't explain it. And all of these things, the miracles and the phenomena and everything, the visions and everything, all bode to something beyond regular conscious thought, normal conscious thought that we call normal. And you have these experiences. Now, I always, when we do our Zoom meetings, I always encourage people and push people to reach further, to reach inside, to feel inside. Right? And if you're a Star Wars fan, where Master Yoda instructs Luke, you have to feel the Force flowing through you. It's a feeling. It's not, you can't work it out with your pointy brain. Okay? You cannot work it out. If you can think you can work it out, you are wrong. Because thinking as an idea of helping you to escape the nature of the containment of your own conscious association is what the problem is in the first place. You have to witness it. You witness it through the changes that occur in your consciousness and are reflected out in your world, because your world is a projection of consciousness, is a projection of your mind. It's a symbolic pictorialization, if you like, or visualization of a state of mind that you, in general, I guess you could say, struggle to come to terms with over and over and over. Why is my life like this? Why is the world like this? Why does these people keep saying these things and those people keep saying those things? Why are there wars? Why is there disease? Why do little children get born into suffering and illness and disease? All of these things, right? If that's the way you're seeing the world, man's inhumanity to man, the natural world of disaster and all of that, if you're seeing the world with yourself as a kind of reluctant participant in it, then things need to change. The only way they can change is by changing your mind about the world, about its purpose. And you'll say to me, well, I don't really know the purpose of the world. I was just born here and I'm doing what everybody else does and trying to make the most of it. And that's, of course, what everybody does. But I'm telling you, and you don't have to believe me, that the world does have a purpose. It's a place where you've come to experience pain, suffering, and death, and you chose to have that experience. You don't remember choosing to have that experience. That choice was made, that decision was made outside of the paradigm of time and space, outside of the third dimension. If you've ever seen the movie, and I like movies are sort of catching on as my mind awakens, or as mind awakens. The one where Arnold Schwarzenegger goes to Mars. Total Recall. He has a memory implanted into his mind, which, whilst the memory is active in the safe enclosure of the pod or whatever they've put him in, to him it seems very real, but of course it never actually happened. That's exactly the same as this, although I cannot say whether you have been to some kind of travel agency and had a memory implanted, which includes me as your debriefing agent. It's like in the fine print when you go to the travel agent down the bottom. If your holiday really sucks, call this number. Well, somewhere you've called the number, somewhere you've asked for answers. Why is the world like this? And here I am, I'm popping up to tell you why it's like this. And I just did. You're a child of God. You're a part of the eternal creation of the kingdom of heaven, if you like, which is the ever-extending light and love of the reality of our creative source. And you have free will, and with it you've chosen to have an experience of being unlike what you are, and to experience your reality as unlike what it is. As an idea of, can I be separate from God? Is it possible to be separate from God? I'm telling you, no, it's not possible, because if God is everything, then how can there be something to be opposite to it or separate from it, other than another version of God, or God wearing a disguise? And presented through many different spiritual sort of points of view, we come to the acceptance finally in our realization that we can't solve the problem for ourselves. We don't understand it for ourselves. For a second, we're going to take it on spec that perhaps all of these saints and prophets and visionaries of the past, and perhaps some of you indeed have had experiences like I have had as well, aren't just crazy old fuckers in the desert. They've actually had some kind of profound out-of-body sort of experiences, and they're telling you that the world isn't real. It's just an illusion. It's a dream. And if you are a fan of the Bible, in the Old Testament, where God puts Adam into a deep sleep to extract the rib to make Eve, there is no mention of God waking Adam up again. Analogy, perhaps. Figurative story, I very much doubt it, but I'm not going to say no. I wasn't there. I couldn't say. But I want to keep an open mind. I don't want to just dismiss an entire learning option because I don't believe it. You know, when Oppenheimer invented the nuclear bomb with the capacity to destroy millions of people, I'm sure that half the world didn't want to believe that either. It's like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you create a weapon why would you create any weapon, actually? But we've learnt nothing since Cain and Abel, which is sad. However, here we are on our planet, spinning at 900 miles an hour in a galaxy we call the Milky Way, wondering what it's all about, and hoping like hell that there's some kind of alternative that's better than this, because this isn't what I signed up for, I'm sure. And if it is, it must be because somebody donked me on the head and I had a mad moment. So you want to be the witness to the nature of the divine construct, because as above, so below, in eternity, so on earth. You want to be the witness to that divinity in your own life, in order to assure yourself that there is a God, that God is eternally loving, does not judge, but also does not interfere in my wishes to experience pain, suffering, and death, because I have free will. And so I sit with that. I sit with that idea. God's not going to interfere unless I ask. And that's where prayer comes in. Prayer is a means of communicating with God, believe it or not. What you're actually doing is talking in a very reasonable way, hopefully. Some of you might talk in a very frantic way. But talking in a very reasonable and heartfelt way to the creative source of the universe with no capacity to remember what that is. I remember what that is. I reached enlightenment in 1997, and you can watch those videos about that particular passage in my experience in my playlists, the experience playlists, spiritual experiences, I think it's called. So prayer is always taken on faith, as is any kind of leap of faith. You're talking to the unknown or the unremembered in your prayer. So there's this open-minded, well, I'm just going to pray and hopefully I'll be heard. That's generally the perception, when you start to pray. And if you pray with heartfelt sincerity, not just lip service, I'll give up drinking if you help me get through this, Lord. That's bargaining. That's not prayer. Think of prayer as talking to an elder brother or a parent that you trust and love, but you just talk in the same way actually that you might talk to someone in your family who had passed, and you just feel like talking to them. Like my mother passed a year or so ago, just over a year ago, and sometimes I do talk to her. Not because any kind of prayerful way, just because I know that there is no death. And I know that she can hear me somewhere because everything is connected. Everything is one mind. There is no death and life is eternal. Despite the fact that my body's eyes want to witness to people dying and death as being the end of life. Well, it's not the end of life. That's ridiculous and preposterous. I brushed my beard this morning. You need to witness to the changes. And you only have so many catalysts for the witnessing. The world is not a complicated place. Most people put their pants on the same way. You can have only so many avenues of interest generally for most people. We have a sexual life and a philosophical or religious life. We have a sports life, if you like, and we have a home life, a children life, and all of these sorts of things. And generally most people have, 7 or 8 things that they could bracket as relationships in their lives. Financial life, it's a big one for most people. When you go through your transformation, if you're using the workbook of A Course in Miracles, you've read the text, you're up to the lessons, and you're doing 1 lesson a day for a whole year. For me, the first year was a waste of time. I realised how half-hearted I was with the lessons and decided to start again the following year. And the result was much more tangible and perceptible, and things did absolutely shift and change. Not that they didn't the first year, but small shakes, nothing much. Despite that, I was still recovering, I guess, from Enlightenment the year before. That went on for about 3 years before I started to feel any way, shape, normal again. And I don't even think that normal is the word anymore. I don't know what that even means anymore. We all joke about it, what is normal, but I mean, you'll find out. So you want to witness to the changes in the relationships in your life. You want to see them all become more peaceful, more loving. To witness to the true as above, so below nature of life that reflects one's devotion to God. Right? If you're doing the course, you'll realize first that you have to countenance the idea that you are not devoted to God, that you chose this experience to avoid God, and that all your foot stamping and fist waving that you're a good God-fearing person and all of that is really just a right lot of nonsense. You're not at all. And you have to find that within you, where that the first obstacle to peace is the desire to get rid of it. You have to sort of find that in there. It's like, oh my God, I don't really want God. I did choose this experience. I am experiencing separation, which is why my state of mind is so encumbered with the woes and the ills of the world. That's what I'm seeing. One of the lessons in the course says the very fact that you see such things is proof that you do not understand God. There are two ways of seeing, through the eyes of fear or through the eyes of love. And as you change your mind about not only the person you think you are or the being that you think you are, but your purpose for being in the world, things will begin to change accordingly. If I use one of those relationships, and I'll use money because, why not? I could use health, sickness and healthiness, or I could use wealth and poverty. I'm going to give you a few pointers whereby you can begin to apply the principle of miracle-mindedness, which will bring you to a great deal of peace regarding the anxiety you might have around money or any other relationships, so that you can begin to put these things into practice in your own life and become the witness to the fact that your prayers are answered, to the fact that God is true. God is a fact. Poverty consciousness, which is always having no money, I'm always broke, I'm always this, I'm always that, is something that a lot of people experience. Right? Now, you make your own problems. You make your own temptations, you make your own problems, you make your own temptations by giving yourselves rules. And you'll say, well, we need rules, otherwise society would devolve into a horrible mess. Well, don't forget, you've got nuclear bombs. Does it have to devolve any further? You've got people making poison vaccines, killing off as many of you as they can. Does it have to devolve any further? There's nothing in your world that is not symbolically representative of the idea, the insane idea of death. Even whilst you live, even whilst you are born, you yet begin to perish. Luckily, it's a dream. You were never born, you can never die. But that doesn't get you out of what this actually is, which is a universal classroom where you are learning to choose again and make a new decision for yourself regarding what it is that you want out of the world, whether you choose to stay here and experience the meaninglessness and emptiness of recycling through different sojourns in death again and again, or whether you want to join the great awakening that is happening, not the woke awakening, spiritual awakening. It has nothing to do with any kind of social awareness or political awareness or anything like that. It's universal awareness. So, you've never got any money. Always broke. Always struggling. Realize then, firstly, that struggling is what you want. You've asked for it before you came to the world to experience what struggle is, and you're experiencing it. Until you actually admit to it being your choice, to being your decision. It's like an alcoholic going to AA. Until you can admit you're an alcoholic, the program isn't going to work for you, because fundamentally the premises upon which you're applying the principles of the program have no foundation. So I admit I'm struggling. I'm always broke. I need a miracle. Father, in my heartfelt, sincere prayer, I need help. I don't know what to do. I cannot find the place in my mind, pre-birth, pre-experience, where it is I chose for separation, which brings with it all the particulars of separation, one of which is struggle. And the form that it takes is financial struggle. It could be emotional struggle. It could be all sorts of struggle. You're going to have to take a leap of faith. When you ask for help, when you ask in prayer for help, you are keeping an open mind to a solution that is not of your own making. Otherwise, why ask in prayer? It's a miracle because you don't know how it happens. And if you're still trying to navigate and control how you think more money will come to you, in this case money, or more wealth, more anything, and I'm not talking about manifesting, then you haven't truly let go. You're not truly allowing for the miracle. But remember, you've got nothing to lose. Tick-tock time is always against you. You have nothing to lose by learning to become miracle-minded and saying, fuck it. Fuck it, I'm just going to leave it up to the universe. I'm just going to leave it up to God because I don't have a choice. And you have to see that you don't have a choice. If you still think you have a choice, go be about it. Go and study, accounting or financial, whatever it is that they do these days. How to swindle people out of money. Invest, study the stock market. If that's still you, then do that, because whilst you have not yet exhausted all your options, miracle mindedness isn't going to be able to be given full value. I never have less than I need, and I never have more than I need. My needs are always met and always have been, but I never used to be that way. I used to struggle with money. I never had any money. And I had to apply exactly the same steps I'm telling you. And I'm going to give you the little story. I think I've told it before. I used to like going for coffee with the brothers in town after we'd do a big satsang and a meditation, which would often go for 3 to 4 hours, sometimes longer in the mornings. And we'd go into town, some of us, afterwards, and just sort of defrag after a big meditation. And you needed to. Sometimes I would go to the ocean and swim and just let the tide and the movement of the ocean ground me again as the form association. But I could never afford my coffee. I had no job. I'd given up my job and my house and everything to be at this healing centre, and I was living on welfare for a little while until I finally did get a job. But the place where the healing centre was, there was like, comparative to the rest of the country, I think it was like 70% unemployed. It was ridiculous amount of unemployment. Very difficult to get work. But my friend Josie, we were having a bit of a relationship at the time, very loving relationship. I thought it was. I don't think she thought it was. Maybe she did. Hi, Josie. She said to me, you're always broke. You've always got no money. You get your welfare, you pay your rent and buy a bit of food, and then you've got nothing left. And it's like, she was sick of it and I was sick of it. And she said to me, aren't you sick of that? And I said, yes, I'm sick of it, but I can't find any work. And partly because the obstacle to peace, the first obstacle to peace is the desire to get rid of it. Somewhere in my mind, I didn't want work. I wanted to experience struggle. That's what I signed up for before I came to the world. I didn't realise it. It wasn't clicking in. Like, I could sort of hear that, and, you know, like you get the results of your thinking, and whatever's happening to you is what you want to be happening to you. I couldn't quite hear it. I wouldn't have said perhaps that I resisted that idea, but it wasn't landing anywhere. And she made me, it was, mobile phones were just starting to come in, the great big Nokia, you know, it was the first lot of phones without the cord attached to the big battery that you had to wear on a strap over your shoulder. A lot of you younger people won't relate to that, but that's how the first mobile phones were. And all you could do is make calls in and out. There was no internet stuff going on. And the apps that were available on the early phones were really just game apps, you know, the Snake one, and getting off track. But anyway, she said to me, these big Nokias, and I'd talked about them, like, isn't that incredible? When I was a little boy, we used to think, you know, like Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty, and you could just have something in your hand and you talk to it and without a cable, right? And she said, come on, I'm taking you down to the Telstra office, the telecom office, and we're going to get you a phone. And you had to get them on a plan, $25 a month, I think it was, which seemed to me an awful lot, especially back then in 1999 or whatever it was. And instantly it terrified me. I became very concerned. How am I going to pay? I can't even afford a coffee. How am I going to pay for, you know, like at $25 a month? That's like almost $7 a week, right? And she said, well, you'll just have to let it be a miracle. And it stopped me in my tracks. I'm like, yes, I'm just going to have to let it be a miracle. I'm just going to have to let God provide. I'm going to have to let Jesus pay the bills, however that is. Otherwise, I'm going to be in debt for a phone, as well as everything else that I'd left behind that I owed money on prior to coming there. And so down we went to the office, and to the telecom office, and I got a phone. And it really set me into a spin. And I think that night I prayed like, there it was. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't avoid my emotional state, which was being somewhat terrified about this whole thing. Somebody who lives in poverty consciousness, you know, like, it's hard to go lower than having no money. It's almost like having negative no money is, it's a nightmare to be owing money when you've got no money. But I used the anxiety and I used the stress, I used that energy for prayer, because in that place where I was stressed out and wondering how the hell I'm going to pay for this thing when it comes due the first of the month, I was honest in that place. That was an honest place, honest prayer with integrity. And I went into prayer and went to bed or whatever I did. And then 3 days later, 3 days always seems to be the miraculous number, I got a phone call from a brother who lived out of town a little bit, who had just bought a 5-acre property with about 50 or 60 different varieties of fruit trees on it. Now, I was well known in the healing centre as having been the head gardener at several island resorts in the Whitsundays in Australia, at Lindeman Island and Daydream Island and Long Island, in charge of teams of people to oversee the maintenance of the gardens. That was my forte, I guess, a gardener. For a period of time anyway. I'd also done a lot of other things. He rang me and he said, I've just bought this little orchard, this house with this orchard. Would you like to be the gardener for the place? I can employ you for 3 days a week. So I moved onto his property. I was living in my van. I moved onto his property. Didn't have to pay any rent, and I got 3 days a week work. It was only minimal wages, but it paid my phone bill, and it gave me plenty of money for coffee and some left over. Right? But I had to go through the emotional anxiety threshold. I had to go through the emotional anxiety point of realizing, fuck it, I've got no choice. I had to face it and I had to give in. I had to surrender to it and let it do whatever was going to happen. Right? And in that place where that emotional anxiety was at its peak, I prayed. I always teach, don't waste your pain, use it for prayer. We had a young fellow who's just had a baby, and I won't mention his name, I'll keep it out, but just had a baby at our satsang last week, who was telling the story of a certain particular thing, and the story was full of energy. I could see it was full of energy, and he was talking about how he felt about it, which is all the energy. It's the feeling of how you feel about something is the emotional energy tied up in it. And I said to him, don't waste your pain. Don't waste all this energy. Go and pray. And I made him leave the satsang to go and pray. I told him to be gone. Scoot, you shall not pass. Wearing my Lord of the Rings jumper. And he did. And hopefully we'll hear a happy story this coming week. Prayer always works, but it has to be sincere and heartfelt prayer. Otherwise, it's not that your prayer won't be answered, but you won't witness the answer. The mind has to be fully open to whatever it's going to be, whatever that answer is going to be, in order to be able to become the witness to it and see the nature of the change taking place. Now, you could say it was just coincidence that that brother rang me and offered me the job in the orchard. Just coincidence. But is it? If you pray again and again, this situation, that situation, and it keeps being a coincidence, is it then a coincidence, or is there something else at work? Is there a higher principle to the universe, something that you don't understand, but when you are honest, gives you the opportunity to come to an understanding of it? And it's the honesty that's the difficult bit, which is why I say don't waste your pain. Einstein said, nature abhors a vacuum. Think about that. Nature abhors a vacuum, which means it's impossible for there to be a vacuum, because nature will fill it with air, and we're talking about within the atmosphere of the world, obviously. If you apply that to life, nature abhors a vacuum, it means that whatever you have as a need, whatever space you offer to the universe to fill for you, rather than trying to run around and fill it in yourself, the universe will fill it in. It may not always look like exactly what you think it should look like or that you want it to look like, but it will always be perfect. It will always fit the need, and even then some. Jesus pays the bills. Same thing. Right? So if you're struggling with money, if you never have enough money and you're tired of trying to work out how to get more money, make a commitment. One of the things that I remember with Judith Scutch, who was in part one of the earlier contributors and assistants with getting the Course in Miracles published into the world, on the video of how the Course came, and you can look that up, the story of A Course in Miracles, she says that they were sitting around, none of them had any money particularly, they were sitting around wondering where they would get the money for the first publishing of the Course to get it printed. And as they were reading the Course, as they were all students of the Course, she realized, oh, we need to pray and ask. And so they prayed and they asked. And then it was 3 days later, I think, I might be wrong about that, but not very long after, the phone rang, and somebody who'd been given a preliminary copy of the Course in Mexico, I believe, was on the other end of the phone, told them, hey, I've just sold a block of land and here's the money to help you guys publish the course, you know, because he was asking when will it be in a published form rather than a Xeroxed form. And Judas Scutch said to him something like, well, that's very auspicious because we're just trying to work out how to get the money for that ourselves. That's what we want to do. And he said, well, I've just sold a block of land. He said, you're welcome to the money. You know, very generous contribution. And that was the first printing of A Course in Miracles, the 3 books. So everything is faith. Jesus says in the Bible, unless a man lives by faith alone, he shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is a state of mind of perfect peace where you have no wants, no needs, no desires, no problems, no need for solutions, no health, no sickness, no better, no worse, no mine, no yours, no rich, no poor. Always perfectly supported by the love of God, or as Albert Einstein would say, the universe, or nature. Doesn't matter. As long as it's not you, as long as you're not trying to work out your own, you know. And for those of you who are, what are they called, control freaks, people get called control freaks these days. For those of you who are control freaks, you're probably going to find it harder to let go and let God. But remember, you're entitled to miracles. Purification is necessary first, but you're entitled to miracles. The purification is simply the realignment of your way of thinking, so that if a miracle were to be given to you, you wouldn't corrupt it with your old way of thinking, like you've corrupted your own inner light, or think you've corrupted your own inner light, in order to find yourself in the experience of pain, suffering, and death lifetime after lifetime. There's no point giving you more light, giving you more energy, more creative zest if you're just going to keep fucking up. You have to learn to become responsible. It's time to waken up to yourself, you know, waking up to the universe and your part in the universe as its co-creative source, not the avatar, not this entity Dave, but the mind that is dreaming of the avatar, which this entity Dave now represents as a alternative point of view, an alternative way to think and to see the world, etc., so as to begin a great reversal of thought, which we are now experiencing in our world. We're at the beginning of experiencing it, which is why it's important for those of you who have a copy of the course to begin to tell others about it and to make it available to your friends and your family and to whoever comes to you that Jesus sends to you to learn of the universal curriculum, and however that'll be, whatever particulars that plays out as. It might play out as healing, or it might play out as a dinner party or a painting class. It can look like anything, but you're representing the universal curriculum by your own example of it, but also in words like I am, and in words and deeds and thought all the same. There's no disparity between your thoughts, your words, and your doings. But of course it takes a moment. It takes that passage of healing that we call the transformative or the purification process, which can last quite a while, a decade or more, until you become truly grounded in an unshakable belief or unshakable resolve regarding the fact of the matter that miracles are real, that God is a fact, and that things are changing in your life, not by your own power, but by a higher power. You have to feel it. Feel the force around you. Feel the universe. Feel the nature of emotions is feeling. But if you're denying your emotions, if you're denying how angry you are, if you're denying how frustrated you are, pushing it all down, all of that is like a loaded spring. It'll play out through the body. You'll give yourself cancer, or you'll give yourself some kind of brain tumor or something like that, or a lump under your collarbone, which you don't have. Purely because you're not a body. But the process of healing is remembering you're not a body and applying the principles that tone to you not being a body in the situations where the body identity seems to be the pivotal thing in working out who you are and what you're about. Stop trying to work out who you are and what you're about. You already know somewhere inside of yourself. Start operating from a place where you're willing to accept and take it on faith from me or Jesus or Bible or whatever, that you are divine. Start to live from your divinity and bring yourself up from the dark mire of human desperation. Practice miracle-mindedness. I'm just going to let it be a miracle. I'm just going to let it be a miracle. Many of you who watch my channel have seen the videos that I make about when I underwent through the body the experience of cancer and letting that be a miracle. And it wasn't a lovely journey, but I got my miracle, and it added to the list of uncontrovertible, especially that one, uncontrovertible or incontrovertible circumstances and events that buoyed me up from the mire of human desperation and brought me to a certainty of the fact of the matter that there is a divine power, a divine orchestration to the universe, and you can align with it if you want to. Peace.